All right, so thank you all for joining me today for our university prep presentation on time management. And our goal today, or the key learning outcomes that we'll be looking at around time management, is how do we get prepared for the semester, the importance of creating a routine for ourselves, using calendars as tools. So calendars, boy, they can seem really basic and like, oh, we've tried calendars before, but how do we really make these effective for us? And why are these so important for time management? And woven throughout all of this, we'll be talking about different habits to help you to be successful. So what are tips and tricks along the way for you to think about to be more successful with your time management? And one thing that I always like to say with regards to these presentations is that there's a lot of information that will be provided, and to just know that if you can walk away with, one or two strategies that you'd like to start off and try, that is a success. So that's my goal for you, is to pick a few things that you'd like to try out as this fall semester begins. And then, you can always follow back up with a success center and we can talk about additional strategies or review other things, but you don't have to feel like you have to do everything all at once. Start with a few key things and then keep building on it. So time management, talking about semester prep, I think this is a really great place to start, that we can begin our time management strategies even before the semester begins. So for most of you, this is your first semester here at the university, but for some of you, you're coming back for your second year or so. And so some of this might ring true, but a great way to get started is even just to familiarize yourself with your courses in the campus. So as you've already signed up for your courses, it's taking a moment to consider, where are your actual locations of your classrooms and what are those times? How much time do you need to get in between? How much time will you need to get onto campus? So if you're living in residence, it's just maybe, 5-10 minute walk. But if you're living maybe in Picture Butte or Coaldale, or you're living in Calgary and you have to commute after work to your courses, what kind of time do you need to be prepared for your courses? It can also be really helpful to even just be aware of, okay, if your course has provided a syllabus, what kind of dates and deadlines are happening? Is there a lot of reading within this course? Just getting a little bit familiar about your courses before they even begin. That way it can reduce the surprises on both the course load and maybe supplies or requirements that will be with the course that you've signed up for. It can also be really helpful to get on top of the supplies that you need in advance. So I know sometimes students may consider adding or dropping courses, so they may not want to get their textbook early, but there can be some challenges with maybe the textbook being delayed and being delivered or other things. So the earlier you can be on top of making sure that you have your textbooks, or if there's maybe a specific software that you need, if you're in a computer science course, or resources such as a lab kit or art supplies, of course, even just your notebooks or, any of those types of things, having them available and ready before the start of class can just help reduce some of the additional stress in getting those things organized and ensuring that you have everything that you need so you're feeling ready, calm, and confident before the semester even begins. So a simple thing, but it can really help set the tone of the semester on a really positive start. The next thing to think about is creating a routine for yourself. So especially if you're coming from high school, it can be a big change adjusting to university life. Not only if you're moving here for the first time, adjusting to all of that, but even just what your day looks like. You may have days where you have no classes in the morning at all, or for some students, no classes on Friday. And it can feel like, oh, I've got a lot of time. But that time can slip away from us really quickly if we're not thinking about how we're using that time and being intentional with the time. So creating a routine can really help us to be productive, get the things done that we need to, but also include balance in our life so that we have that time with our friends, or meeting new people, or joining clubs, or, visiting, having time to visit back home. Creating a routine really helps with all of that. The other thing to think about is that as you're again looking at your schedule and you can see different gaps in your day from when your courses are, or some days that are really hectic, really thinking about university through the lens of being a full-time job. So even if you are in 3 courses, the time commitment for that is more than just your class, right? There will be readings, there will be studying, maybe group work or a lab. If you are taking the full course load, 5 courses, especially students is in the sciences where there's labs involved, that quickly fills up your week. So thinking about creating a routine for yourself can really help ensure that you stay on top of your schedule, your timelines, your deadlines, all of those things. And again, being intentional with your time. You'll hear me use that phrase a few times because I really feel like that helps us to create those habits that can help us to be successful with our time management and getting everything done. Another piece to that too, that I'll get into a little bit further, is with that routine, what does the start and end of your school day look like? So just like if you had a full-time job, you would start your shift at a certain time and end your shift at a certain time. As a student, time can really get away from you where you feel like, you're burning the candles at both ends or staying up, really late into the night studying or working on projects. But what if we try and, shift our days to be more of, that shift. So we have a consistent start time, we have a sort of consistent end time. And, just like a full-time job, we often have overtime or, things that require more time. And that's okay, that happens. But if for the most part, we can be really productive with our days, it helps to ensure that we've got evening time to ourselves or that opportunity to be, part of a rec club or other things that, help make the whole university experience really wonderful. So in creating a routine, my favorite tool for that is really using a calendar. So that basic good old calendar. But as a university student, I'd encourage you to consider 2 calendars, using a semester calendar and a weekly or daily type calendar. In some cases, depending on the tools that you want to use, this could all be within one larger calendar, especially if you're using something in an electronic format. But some people prefer paper format. So again, having a semester calendar and a daily, weekly calendar are fantastic tools for time management. So I'll get into each of those here. So a semester calendar, what is the purpose of this? So the image you'll see here, you can actually buy this in our bookstore. It's just a laminated large calendar that has 4 months on there, and you can use those white erase markers or erasable markers on there. But I love it because what the goal of this really is to give us a big picture of what does the semester ahead look like so that we can help prepare for really hectic weeks and get caught up during quieter weeks or have things to look forward to, as the semester is winding up and, you have exams and papers and everything coming. It can be really wonderful to even have this semester calendar to cross off those days to count down to, the holiday break. So I love a semester calendar. So how we go about this is at the start of your semester is going through that syllabus. So that course outline that you get from your professor and going through and looking at what are all the big key dates and deadlines and adding these or noting them in your calendar. You can also include other important dates and events in there. So maybe, yeah, if you've moved to Lethbridge, but for Thanksgiving for sure you're going to be heading home, making sure that you note that because we know that's a weekend where likely not too much schoolwork is going to be getting done because you want to take that time with your friends and family. So, earmarking that on the calendar so that we know in the week ahead or the week after, we might need to prepare or study a little more to help ensure that we have that weekend free, right? So again, it gives us that big picture of what the semester is going to look like, and it can really help us to stay on track of everything. I love this too because there are certainly weeks within this semester that will feel especially heavy. So for example, we often see that the last week of September, the first week of October, most classes tend to have a big project due or midterms or a paper due. And they can all feel like, oh my gosh, they're all landing at the same time, right? It can really catch many students off guard because those first few weeks you feel like, oh, I've got lots of time. I feel like I'm on top of my readings. This is going great. And then when that first week hits where everything's landing at once, it can feel really overwhelming. So on our semester calendar, when we can see that week coming up, it can help remind us to say, oh, I got to get started on the paper a little earlier than I thought, or, I need to start studying earlier than I was expecting to help ensure I can get through that week okay, right? So I love it for that. And once you've taken the time to put this calendar together, making sure that we put it in a place that we can see it regularly. So you don't want to create it and then put it in a place where you're not looking at it again till the semester's over. But think of it as a reminder to yourself, like once a week, of what does the week ahead look like? What do the next few weeks look like? How do I need to prepare or adjust my schedule this week to help ensure that I'm successful? Does anyone have any questions about this? So here's an example of one. This is just a snapshot for the first few weeks up until Thanksgiving. So here we can see, okay, that first week of September, class begins, but already we get a feel of this semester, right? So, reminder, every Sunday afternoon, I have a volunteer gig, so that's not going to be a time where I'm going to be doing a lot of schoolwork. I'm also wanting to be part of the soccer rec league on Tuesday nights. So we've got that fun and the balance in there. But reminder, every Thursday, I've got that stats assignment. So yeah, I need to how am I going to juggle that and make sure I fit that in? Maybe you have a road trip coming up to Waterton. So we want to ensure that there's some like positive things in these calendar to look forward to, and also those important dates that we have to hit. We can see if we look down to the week of October 2nd to 8th, wow, that's a hectic week. We've got a midterm, a couple of midterms, a paper due. So it can be helpful to look at this and think, okay, working backwards a little bit, maybe that week of September 18th, that's when I really need to start working on the paper. So I've got enough time to get things done and completed in time without being too overwhelmed that week of October 2nd. Okay. All right. So as I mentioned, there's two calendars that I encourage for students. One is the semester calendar. So we have a good idea of the big picture, when are the big midterms due, the papers due, all those key dates and deadlines, right? Those are the big goal markers that we have throughout the semester to complete our courses. But I also suggest a weekly daily calendar because this is sort of like our to-do list, our task list. Okay, we have that paper due, we've got those midterms due. In between, I know I have readings I have to do, maybe there's quizzes, other things. How am I going to get all of those things done? So by maintaining sort of a weekly calendar, this helps us to stay on top of everything, the day-to-day level. So with this, as we approach it, you can think about whether you want to use a paper format. So, maybe it's a bullet journal or going to chapters and getting a cute agenda, or the bookstore has some. So some people love paper, so that's a great way to go. Electronic versions are also great because then it can be on your computer or you can access it on your phone, and have everything there. There's a lot of great apps out there. One that I like is called My Study Life. And so you can see that image there. But also as students, you all have access to the Outlook suite of programs. And so within that is Office 365. So you can use that calendar. Or if you love Google, of course, the Google Calendar. So whatever format that you like. The one thing I would recommend though is that try and only maintain 1, 2 at most of these calendars. Because one thing that I can often see from students is that on their phone, they'll keep maybe their work shifts, but then maybe in a paper agenda, they keep some school stuff or personal appointments, and then maybe post-it notes for other things that they need to remember. As you can imagine, when you've got more than one calendar or format and trying to keep track of all the things, it can be really easy to drop the ball or miss a date, deadline, assignment, appointment, etc. So trying to narrow it down to just 1 or 2, so if you did 2, it would be maybe 1 for school and work and 1 for personal, but 1 where possible, just to ensure everything is all in there at once and you have a really good idea of what's going on, whether it's school, personal, or work life. Okay. And then as we decide what kind of format we want to use, the next thing would be to decide how do we want to use it. So there's many, many different ways that we can approach timetabling or using a calendar, but two really basic ones is to utilize it with a list of very specific tasks that we need to do, and either creating it as a to-do list or even assigning those times. So I'll give you an example of those as we go ahead, but just a little piece to put into your mind right now. Okay. Now, as we create this weekly or daily calendar, some things to keep in mind is that as we build a calendar, we start with our set commitments, things that we really know that are fixed, right? So when our courses are, if there's a tutorial or a lab that we have signed up for, do we have any work shifts, volunteer commitments, or club commitments? And then also prioritizing time for family or friends, like those social activities. Also, when are you going to have lunch or breaking for supper? Physical activity is so important for our not only our physical health, but our mental health. So including that in there, and some flex time too. So as I talk about calendaring and using these as tools to stay on top of our time, it's not about, setting a set time for every single thing and not having any flexibility. What I love about these is that it helps us to be intentional, to reserve time and dedicate time for the things that we need to do, so that we've got time set aside or available for when something fun pops up, or when we need extra sleep and downtime, or when we want to meet up with our friend for a coffee. It's ensuring that we've got all of our priorities taken care of, so we can balance that out and have the time that we need for our own personal time. And then the other piece is thinking about the tasks like our to-do lists, and then how do we make that efficient and effective as well? So as we're looking at our to-do list, some things to keep in mind is, when does that task need to be completed by? Are we starting it early enough to give ourselves the appropriate amount of time that we need? Also considering how much time will that task take? Most commonly, we underestimate the amount of time those tasks will take. In particular, reading, because if we think about reading for university, it's for academics, it's for learning, compared to if we're reading, just a fun beach read, right? We can read that in a day or over a weekend. It's light. But reading for university is much slower because we're using it for learning. So it can be common to underestimate our time. So thinking about that as we look at our to-do list can be really important. And then the other thing, what are our top priorities, and giving particular attention to those tasks first, so that they don't slide down the list and we find that, we're getting lots of things done, but they weren't really important. And the really big project we needed to do, now we're doing it, late at night. So thinking about these things as we're looking at our task list. Okay, so with those things in mind, here are some examples to help guide us through. So in this example, this is just a paper format, and actually this printout, we have multiple copies of those in our office, so feel free to stop by, or we have a PDF we can email out as well. But yeah, so good old paper format here. But as you can see, they're starting with what are their set things in here, and then they're using a separate task list to get those things done. So I'll kind of walk us through it. So starting off with the things that we know, right? They have Anthropology 1000, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 o'clock. So they have that marked in their calendar. And then their stats class, their psych class, a management class on Wednesday night. So we already know that that's part of the calendar. But this person, in thinking about university as a full-time job, regardless of what time their courses start, they're going to start their day every day at 9 o'clock. That's when their shift starts. It's not too early, but it also gives them time to wake up, have a breakfast, maybe do a walk, right? And get to campus. Now, in this example, you'll see areas of yellow, they're kind of highlighted here. This is time that the student has dedicated to get their tasks done, so study time. And I love this because look, just by coming on campus at 9 a.m. every day, or maybe you're starting your day at home, right, at 9 a.m., but that's your school starts time. Every day, they already have an hour of schoolwork that they've got done before even their first class has started. And then after their anthro class on Monday, they've blocked aside some more study time, been specific to say, okay, I need to have lunch because we need a break in our day. Then they have their psych class and then a couple more hours of school work. And now they have a break. They have lunch, supper. That's the end of their school shift. Now, on Wednesday, Thursday, there's a management class, there's a stats lab. So those evenings go a little bit more. But by being really specific and intentional about their time during the day, their evenings are now free to do social activities or watch a favorite show or just hang out. Or if you have a particularly busy week, then some of that evening time might be working on a paper or for extra study time. But really, their day is being really productive. That includes their classes, their study, reading time, and lunch breaks, of course, too. Now, in this example as well, noting that they're using a daily task list as the way to keep up with everything. So how you'd go about this is, you take a look at your week ahead and say, okay, I know this week I need to work on my English essay. I need to read these psych chapters, review my notes. I have to submit the essay on Tuesday, etc. Right? So in this example, having a list and then sort of assigning these tasks to a day can help you to stay on track so that on Monday they know when they've got that time set aside indicated in yellow. During those times, that's when I'm going to work on my essay, do the reading, review my anthro notes. And then on Tuesday, during that set aside time, I'm going to make sure I submit that essay. I'm going to do my anthro discussion response and review their stats notes, right? So it's really guiding their day so that their time is used really well and they're staying on top of everything. Okay, any questions about that? Okay, so now this is the exact same calendar. The difference is within those yellow highlighted time blocks, this individual is getting specific about what they're going to do during each of those time blocks. So I'm showing this as a different example because students either respond positively or negatively to this. So the positive about this is that we're really specific about our time. We know when we're going to do each task. It can also be helpful because we can quickly find out whether we've given ourselves enough time or not. So for example, when you're editing that English essay on Monday afternoon, is it really was the 2 hours enough? If not, that gives us great feedback to say, oh, next time I know I need to give myself more time. And then we need to find time later in the week. So it's good because it informs us about that and we really know what we're doing during all of our time in the week. Some people that really love this written out clearly find this really helpful. Sometimes students who have ADHD like this because it helps them to be less distracted and more focused with their time about what to do and when. For other students, this is overwhelming and we want more freedom and flexibility with our time. So either example is great. They're both the same amount of time. It's just giving you two different options about how you want to use your week. A good tip that I want to give you though is that when you're looking at your tasks that you need to do and when you're going to do them, we often take the tasks that we least want to do and we tend to procrastinate on those ones or push them aside. But often they're important or a priority or, something that we really need to get done. So a good tip that I encourage for students is when you're looking at your task list, those tasks that are a priority or the ones you want to do least, get those done earlier in the week or better earlier in the day. Just get those done and out of the way because it's much easier to do, readings for a class that you really enjoy late afternoon when you're feeling a little bit more tired, right? But you enjoy it. So it's like, oh, not so bad. But if it's mid-afternoon and you're feeling tired and now you're going to have to work on that, writing assignment that you've been dreading, oh, it's even harder. And it's really easy to be like, bah, I'll do it later. And then, it doesn't get done. So really thinking about when we want to get our tasks done. Another good tip as well is thinking about what does your energy level look like. So I say early in the morning because we tend to be fresher during that time. So taking those tasks and doing those hard things when we feel our best can help us get through it a little bit better than when we're not feeling so good. And, in this calendar, we also see like lunch breaks and a gym break, our day broken up. And that's really important too, because we're not robots, right? We're humans. We need breaks. And just as if you were working a full-time job, you would have a coffee break, you would have a lunch break. So as a student, making sure that you have breaks for yourself throughout the day as well. Okay. Yeah. Here's that exact same calendar again, but in this example, I'm just showing you a digital format. So using your Office 365, you're just putting in these exact same time blocks. One nice thing about using the electronic format is that, you can set these as reoccurring things. So your calendar is set for every week, but then it's also much more easily adjustable when things come up, or, maybe you need to include more study time or less study time. Okay, so some flexibility with that. And then you can easily check your calendar, whether it's at your computer or on your phone as you're on the go. You can also include tasks within this calendar. It's just not shown in this image here. One more thing that I'd like to point out, and it's a tip that I got from one of our students, and I love it, is that she would dedicate weekly catch-up time each week. For her, she did it on Saturday, so I've included it on this calendar, but you can include it at whenever you have kind of a good time block in the week. But I loved it for Saturday because what she would do is that she had her task list of the things she wanted to get accomplished during the week. But then, life happens. Maybe your printer breaks down, or maybe you had to ask a question from your professor and you didn't hear back soon enough, or, there were other delays that can happen. So she would set aside time on Saturday where she could catch up on the tasks. And being careful not to use this as procrastination, like, oh, I'll just do it on Saturday during my catch up, but instead, having this time set aside where you could get everything wrapped up so you're not carrying anything forward into the next week. And if your week went really smoothly, then you get this free time back. But in case it's needed, it's there and available. The other thing she used during this time was she would take a look at the week ahead and then plan out the week. What are my to-dos for next week? What days am I going to get those tasks done? Or, do I have to meet with my study group or meet with my professor? So she would use that for some planning that she could set herself up for success on the week ahead. So I really love that as a great tip, setting aside catch-up time consistently each week at a set time to help you stay on top of everything and prepare for the week ahead. Okay. The other thing too is as you have that catch-up time or you're preparing for the week ahead, I really love taking some time for reflection and reviewing how did this last week go? Because not every week is going to go 100%, right? And that happens. But how can we learn from that? How can we take each week and improve upon it? The other thing I like to mention to students is remembering, again, that we're humans, we're not robots. So we set these calendars, but the expectation isn't that you will follow it 100%, because who can? But I think if you can kind of strive for 80-20, that rule of if 80% of the time I'm on top of it, and 20% of the time, maybe not as successful or it took longer, I have to do that next week instead. What it does is it helps ensures that for the most part, we are on top of things so that when we have a really busy week, or maybe we're sick and out of class for 2 days, we don't fall behind the same way that we would had we not been on top of things, right? It gives us some more wiggle room and helps us to stay on track for the most part. So as we review each week, ways to help improve our time management is taking a look at what successes did I have? So what went well? For example, wow, I gave myself an hour to do the stats assignment, and I find an hour is the perfect amount of time. So in the weeks ahead, I'm going to make sure I give myself an hour to work on the stats assignment. Or maybe you found, yeah, coming to campus every day at 9 a.m. and starting your day really helped you to ease into school. Maybe you did some reading and you enjoyed a coffee at the same time. It set the tone for a good day and you got a lot accomplished. But also, what challenges did you face? Maybe it's that, wow, this week I found like 3 o'clock every day, I just hit the wall. I just wasn't motivated. I wasn't doing anything. I was rereading the same paragraphs over and over. So maybe next week at 3 o'clock, I'm going to make sure that I put in a break, Or I end my day and then I go for a walk. And then in the evening, I set aside an hour to do that work instead, because I maybe find that I get a little energy boost in the evening. So that is a good time for me to finish up the school day, right? So not taking those as like, oh, I really sucked this week, but instead, okay, what wasn't working and how can I adjust things so I can be more successful next week? The other piece when it comes to time management that I often hear from students is concerns about, I always mean to study early, but I'm always cramming and I don't really get the studying in that I hope to do. So, what if we created a study schedule for ourselves within there, right? So, maybe it's 3 nights a week we set aside an hour to do studying so that we're doing a little bit of studying consistently as a regular habit or a regular routine. And we feel much more prepared when all of those midterms hit. And even those small chunks can really, add up to some good things. So, for example, as you can see here, just 20 minutes every day adds up to 2.3 hours a week. So, if you're doing that consistently, just think about how that helps you to continue and be successful with your courses as you go along. And always begin studying earlier than you think, because as you're adjusting to university and starting to understand how long those readings take or the assignments or discussion boards, giving yourself some more time by starting earlier just alleviates some of the pressure. And even if you are in your second year, each professor is different and what their expectations within the class can be different. So the first month in particular of your courses is really important in giving you information about what is this class like? What are the expectations? What's the course load like, right? So again, starting earlier just gives you a little bit more space and reduces some of the pressure and can definitely help you feel more prepared when it becomes midterm time and all of those other things. And if you've got a large project or a writing assignment or whatever else, break those up into smaller chunks too. Start them earlier than you think. Put those time blocks within your schedule, and that will help ensure that those things don't get away from you and that you're done. You can complete them when you're hoping to. Okay. So, a few more ideas about time management. Again, using these calendars and these tools, it really is about being intentional with our time. I find this especially in the summer where maybe we're a little bit less busy and like, wow, a week can go by so quickly. And sometimes it's like, what did we do? I'm not even sure, but it flew by. School goes by even quicker and it can pass us by and catch up to us really quickly. So, thinking about how you want to use your time in a way that works for you and being in control of that can really help you to be successful. I also think too, as we're looking at these schedules and time, I've mentioned about having some balance. So you've got your school time, but also personal time. Dedicating somewhere in the week where you really just have a complete evening or a complete afternoon off is really important, because when you're really busy, it gives you something to look forward to and to give you a breather and some downtime. Because if you're doing school 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you can quickly burn out. But having a set schedule and dedicating some personal time for yourself will really go a long way to help ensure that you can not just survive this semester, but thrive this semester as well. And as I talk about routines and calendars, it's about creating these good habits for yourself. The other thing that might be helpful is just kind of taking a pause as you're reflecting in your week. You're doing your prep time for the week ahead and thinking about, are there any habits that aren't really serving me right now? So for example, when I want to just, wind down at night and watch a Netflix show, I'm quickly finding I get in this habit of, instead of just watching the one episode, I've watched 3 episodes, I'm going to bed a little later than I hope. So maybe we reverse that habit or take a look at that and say, okay, I'm really only going to watch one and I'm going to watch it with my roommate. And we're going to make this agreement together that we're only watching one episode and then we're actually turning it off so we can get to bed at a good time, right? As mentioned, do those hard tasks earlier in the week, earlier in the day. Don't wait until you feel ready, because oftentimes we never really feel ready or excited or that we have all the information. It's more about just getting started. And once you get that momentum going, it's much easier to get that task done. And oftentimes, those things that we dreaded the most, we find that when we're done, it actually wasn't as bad as we thought, but it was just getting started. So just get started. Um, Plan out your day the night before. And that might look like, okay, I'm going to make sure I have my lunch packed, or I need to make sure I have this textbook with me, or I want to review my reading a little bit before, I have this big lecture class. Planning it a little bit the night before can help your next day go a lot smoother. Also being aware of social pressures. So, especially that first month, in particular in September, there's a lot of social things going on, and that is so fun. And that's part of the university life and good to be part of that. But we also have to be okay with setting some boundaries to say, okay, tonight I do actually need to get to bed at a good time, or I need to make sure that I'm making some good choices here, or I need to get on top of that reading sooner than I think. And as much as I want to do all of those things, sometimes we have to say no to those to ensure that we are protecting this big investment in ourselves in being a university student, right? And figuring out what that balance is of having fun and academics and everything else and making that all work. Um, and with that too, with the balancing it, yeah, that wellness, taking care of ourselves, right? If we're not feeling well, it's hard to be a good student. So drink that water, get good sleep, eat those vegetables, move your body. All of those things that help you actually feel more healthy and better will really be important as, again, you have those really hectic weeks, or as the semester goes on and you're feeling tired. Making sure we're taking care of ourselves really can help us get through those hectic times. Okay. So in summary, as we look at time management and how to be effective and start the semester well, it's being prepared and organized before those classes even begin, making sure you have those tools that you need. You have an idea of what those courses might be looking like, where your classes are, what time you need to get to campus or getting to classes. It's thinking about creating a routine for yourself. So what does that full-time school job look like for you? When are you going to start that day, end the day? When are you going to set aside time for yourself? Those types of things. Then using calendars as your tool. So a semester calendar, so you have a big picture. What are the key dates and deadlines? What is the flow and the feel of the semester? And then the weekly calendar or daily. So your task list. How do we meet all of those milestones and get those things done that we need and want to do, right? As we look at those individual tasks, really being intentional with those on what's important, what is the priority, how much time will those tasks realistically take, and then setting aside the appropriate time for that. Making studying a regular part of your routine. So moving away from just cramming the night before or studying just 1 or 2 nights before, but really starting a week early. The other thing too is when we start early, it gives us a chance to fill in gaps or get questions answered. Because as we study, sometimes we find, oh, I don't even remember what that was about, or what was the professor meaning here? And if we start early, we have a chance to connect with our professors and ask them about that and fill in all of those gaps. And at the heart of it, it's just really being intentional with our time so that we're using it well, so that we're both successful with university and staying on top of that, but also ensuring we have time for ourselves, our friends, our family, whatever it is that we need to make sure that we feel well during our time at the university here. Okay. To wrap up, with the Success Center, just a reminder that we're located on the Lethbridge campus, AH148, but as mentioned, the services are available also virtually. We offer Learning for Success workshops, individual study skills appointments. One of the key things we actually do during those appointments is we meet with students and we'll build a weekly calendar or help you build your semester calendar and guide you through that. And then you can try it out and then come back and we can, adjust it and see what's working or not. So that's a great service. You can actually come in and go through all of these points individually and get assistance with that. We also have accountability crews where you can check in to help you stay accountable and on top of the tasks that you're hoping to do each week. And then we have some tutorials and other resources available through here. Okay, so I'm just going to pause this here and I'm going to stop the recording. Oh, let's see. And okay.